Before the COVID pandemic of 2020, teachers found it difficult to navigate through the many things necessary to make learning a more individualized experience for all their students. Now, with the entire world sequestering themselves for a year, we are all too familiar with the level of what individualized learning can be. There are numerous shortcomings and issues we still need to deal with, but the experience has also taught us a great deal. We've learned that individualized instruction is less of the nightmare we originally envisioned pre-COVID, and we now have a better grasp on some tools to make it a more feasible proposition for most teachers. The problem is, some teachers still feel overwhelmed by the processes involved with being a one-on-one asset to their students and having to juggle the multiple other things involved with being a teacher, which is a common feeling for all teachers at one point or another. But no matter how negative it ever seems to get, we need to stay focused on the positive. One way I have found to lessen the burdens of everything that the job entails is to immerse myself in the whole process of being that positive mentor for children. Now, I'm not saying that you need to solely pay attention to your students and let everything else go. What I am saying is that if the children become the focal point of attention for you, the countless other challenges that you must face each day may not disappear, but they can become more manageable. There are plenty of people out there who, the moment that they hear you're a teacher, say things like, "Man, that's gotta be a tough job, dealing with so many kids all day," or, "God bless you, I can't even deal with my own kids, let alone a whole class load of them." The thing is, if you talk to many teachers, they'll tell you that it's not the kids that make teaching hard, it's the adults with their complications that they add to everything that makes everyday life as a teacher a nightmare. The more I focus on the students, the more convinced I become that I am a stronger person because of them, because they help me to navigate through every day successfully. I know I'm not alone because many other teachers have also shared this same sentiment with me over the years. Think about it. You're in the middle of this intense project or lesson where your students are accomplishing incredible things, and your pride in them has you on a natural high. And then the end of the day comes where you realize that there's a staff meeting about more new, pointless paperwork that you have to somehow find time in your daily schedule to do. That high that your students gave you is now replaced with an overall feeling of dread going into the meeting. And by the end of the meeting, you feel completely deflated. Until you remember what the kids did today, and how you can't wait to see where they take the project tomorrow. By the way, for all the newbie teachers out there, this seesaw of highs and lows is constant, and it's all part of the process. So, if you're wondering if you're normal to have these feelings, relax. You are. As we move back toward more time in the classroom again, the key to continued teacher success is in being able to tap into every child as an individual. What follows is a sort of refresher on the progressivist model of education that focuses on the learning a child does individually. But before we do that, could you please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you can be notified when I post new videos. It helps the channel a lot. Thank you. Okay, so now that we've got subscribing and hitting the bell icon out of the way, I can share some recent statistics and info about progressivism-related classrooms, and I'll also share a fact about RTI that you've probably already long suspected. With the plethora of new educational philosophies and disciplines that have roared onto the scene in recent decades, we now have many years of evidence as to what is working well and what isn't. Many of the new approaches involve some sort of philosophy that allows students to have a greater degree of control over how they are learning, regardless of what they are learning. These philosophies stem from the progressivist instructional model. Inquiry-based education is a perfect example of this. Progressivism is linked to active learning and allows for frequent feedback, stimulates attention, participation and discussion, and develops critical thinking. Some skills that active learning helps sharpen are analysis, evaluation, public speaking, and collaboration. So what has recent history shown us about progressivist educational models? Well, in 2016, a years-long study that followed 200 students of all races in a school incorporating a progressivism-based philosophy from their time in school to adulthood, 7.2% went to a trade school or two-year college, 43.6% went to a four-year college, 12.4% went to a graduate or medical school, and only 5.4% went into the military. In general, most of the students related that they felt that they knew their strengths while they were in school and were encouraged to capitalize on them to squash their weaknesses. So there seems to be evidence that progressivist educational approaches work for students considered to be developmentally typical, but what about those with learning disorders and disabilities? Research has shown that children perform best when their teacher holds high expectations for them, and that low expectations lead to low student performance. Since schools employing progressivist ideals are more open to the different ways a child can learn, and they hold high expectations of excellence for their students overall, the theory follows that therefore they must be good places for children with educational deficits. Yet low expectations are unfortunately still the norm with special needs children, even in more progressive-based schools. As cognitive psychologist Scott Barry Kaufman says, many children with disabilities are being denied the right to appropriate and demanding expectations. Stereotyping students with disabilities on the basis of a disability level or standardized test score is not supported by the best evidence from the field of psychological and educational measurement." End quote. It's really frustrating that we're seeing this scenario play out in schools all across the country. But wait, you say, there's always RTI. What about RTI? It's amazing just how many educators, even those who work in schools that implement RTI, are having difficulty explaining what RTI actually is. If you visit websites on RTI, you'll see that they describe it as a multi-tiered approach to learning. They speak of assessment and testing and high-quality instruction and additional external supports for students. The interesting thing is, however, teachers who aim to reach every child already are informally involved in a process that mirrors RTI quite a bit. RTI is an acronym that stands for Response to Intervention. If you talk to most teachers, they'll tell you that all of teaching involves some level of responding to interventions, even without the formal RTI process and program to make it so. We look at our lessons and whether they reached the children, how many were reached, and what ways we can modify the lessons or introduce new strategies to ensure our students are understanding it. Experts in the field who defend RTI itself are quick to point out that the need for extra services discovered through assessment and testing using RTI official methods and materials does not necessarily mean that the children were receiving poor instruction. They just require more attention and alternate methodology than their current classroom or classrooms provide. But here's the million-dollar question. Is it possible for teachers to reduce the number of students in need of formal RTI services if the teachers can implement their own lessons in ways that benefit more students? Yes. Yes, they can. You see, in the formal RTI assessment methods, Tier 1 and Tier 2 level students who test and are deemed to possibly benefit from RTI only require a few more extra minutes of intervention. If you're already providing that level of instruction in your classroom, the need for a targeted formal RTI assessment and implementation plan could be unnecessary for many students. The thing is, you need to offer consistency and multiple interesting ways that the material you're teaching can be presented, and your students stand a greater chance of being successful. If you enjoyed what you saw here and want some great methods and strategies that you can use regarding progressivist and RTI implementation for your classroom, my course, The Reaching Connection, is available on Udemy. In it, I cover these topics and a wide range of others to help you reach all your students. The link is in the video description below. For everything that you do for the children of this world, I thank you. And I thank you for watching. Bye for now. Daviator Educational Solutions. Real world, real results.